How would you feel if the only thing we knew about presidential candidates was their stance on issues, no information on party, name, gender, race, or religious beliefs, or lack thereof?
They'd lie even more to get elected than they do now.
Bloomberg, a 33 years old 6'4 plus 240 pounds blonde guy with blue eyes, six packs and mixed parents would never do such a thing.
Bloomberg creeps me the fuck out. I don't want Trump, but I also don't want Bloomberg.
But Bloomberg is different. He has a D next to his name, which means something.
But Bloomberg told me he'll get it done.
Would it be based on their actual stance, or what they claim is their stance?
How do you verify which is which?
What about someone who's never held office before?
Probably their prom king and queen votes.
Wait, those are real? They are not just a TV trope?
It should be like the blind auditions on The Voice.
The choice.
Who's gonna run this bitch?
Had to award you.
Not his joke. Literally word for word from a Gabriel Iglesias stand-up.
I think we need to know more than just the policies. I want to know if they're just saying things for votes or if there's proof of them actually trying to do what they say. It's all very well saying war is bad, but are you actually protesting against wars, or just saying it's bad, as an example?
I'd be happy if the early primaries simply involved a basic civics contest and the person who scores the lowest is automatically disqualified from running.
How would you handle the contest, and how would you ensure that it's not biased or gamed?
The best bullshitter wins. Not that that changes much, but without anything to hold them accountable to their statements and commitments, it's just a mess.
This is how I feel about debates. I, for one, would rather see long-form interviews from the party candidates. Seems that would be more informing.
My understanding is Trump doesn't do longer interviews though, where people ask him questions and he answers them. I don't count him calling up to ramble on Fox and Friends, for example. Is that accurate to your knowledge as well? I'd like to be wrong. I think watching him try to answer real questions would be informative.
He has done a small number of shorter interviews where things predictably go off the rails and over the cliff, yes. They've become less and less frequent though, as they virtually always make him look like an idiot when it isn't some fluffer pretending to be a reporter who asks him pre-arranged softball questions.
No, because things like leadership ability and integrity matter.
Exactly. I'm not just looking at how they stand on some issue. That doesn't tell me how they will lead when unexpected situations arise and they are forced to make difficult decisions. They need to work with other foreign leaders, senators, their own cabinet, experts, etc. I want someone who is going to weigh all the information and make sound decisions that are in the best interest of the people of the United States. Their story, philosophy, upbringing, triumphs, defeats, will all help guide what they believe to be in the best interests. And their persona will help them in generating cohesion to get anything of magnitude accomplished in today's political landscape. Interesting in theory, but context, in the form of values or motivations, matters. For a very extreme example, you can go to r/political compass meme/ and see that two people in a vacuum oppose chattel slavery from Africa, but one of them opposes it because the institution itself is wrong, left, and the other because they don't want black people in America, off-right. If you are curious, you could try one of the online tests that does essentially what you're asking. I usually do. isidewith.com/.
The problem with I side with is it completely throws out any nuance at all. Very broad and vague policy questions are yes/no.
You have to expand the answer options for each question for a more accurate reading.
You should look up the philosophical thought experiment called the Veil of Ignorance. It poses a similar question. You have to look at all political, economic, and social ideas without knowing what your socio-economic position is. Pasting the reply from you think I'm a good woman to give a more accurate description of the experiment, popularly attributed to American philosopher John Rawls. You have to look at all that and then design a society that you would want to live in. But the catch is, you don't know what your position will be. You might be at the bottom, you might be at the top. The idea is that you'll try to make the society as equitable as possible. Kind of like the kid who cuts the cake doesn't get to pick his slice.
An example of this in fiction is from the Doctor Who 50th anniversary special Day of the Doctor, in which two negotiators have their memories wiped. The theory being that they will negotiate a treaty that is fair to all parties. as each negotiator doesn't know which party they belong to.
A beautiful example of political theory.
It's like sharing things between toddlers. 2 cups of juice. Tell one to pour the juice and the other gets to choose their cup. Guaranteed fairness.
I'm 33 and this is still how I split things up. Last slice of pizza? Last brownie? Pork steak? One person splits, the other person picks. Edit. Pork steak is a St. Louis delicacy. Somebody will probably correct me, but it's basically a steak of pork butt, shoulder, that is usually grilled or smoked. Sauce is optional. I've personally bought ones as big as 1.5 pounds, but that's not the standard. They are every bit as delicious as you're imagining.
You cannot choose as a sacred rule.
I mean, for one, it isn't plausible. But also the ability to be social is important for a leader.
Yes. A president isn't just a person whose views we support, it's also their political talent. They have to interact with other leaders, stay calm under pressure, give good speeches, etc., etc.
Exactly. It bothers me when people act like policies are the only thing that matters when it comes to these things. Like, are you really gonna tell me the only important differences between Trump and Obama are their differing opinions on taxation, gun control, and a couple other policies, and their differences in personality and methods of discourse are completely irrelevant?
Reddit is full of people who would like to think social skills and presentation aren't that important.
How would you feel if our /Ask Reddit banned leading questions that begin with how would you feel?
I could have sworn they did. So stupid that these questions still get onto the front page.
They probably lifted the ban after the mods found out that it gets on the front page.
If any sub has no need to get on the front page, it's Ask Reddit.
Lamau at all the supportive comments. It's really one of the dumbest idea I've ever read about elections. You realize a person can lie about their stance, right? Okay, so now you have 400 candidates who all say their stance is whatever is highest polling, or a slight variation thereof. Some might be true believers in those reforms, but most just take those positions cynically to get elected. How can you tell who's who?
The more bizarre thing to me is that the president's stances are among the least important things to being president. Turns out that's all anyone cares about, but what he thinks about gun control or abortion doesn't even matter. His ability to facilitate government, lead the legislative branch to tackle and reach agreements/compromises to enact necessary policy on tough issues, represent America on a global stage, articulate issues to foreign leaders as well as the American people, and uphold the Constitution and rule of law are all monumentally more important than whether he agrees with me on deficit spending. All those issues are how you're supposed to elect congressmen and senators. They're the ones who make the laws, not the president. You think Obamacare would have happened with a Republican legislature? No. If we move to what Up proposes, we might elect the most reasonable, thoughtful, intelligent person ever who happens to be a 5'2" neckbeard with severe social anxiety who can't be taken seriously as a professional, let alone the leader of a nation.
I don't think it would work. It's very easy for a politician to take a verbal stance on an issue. It's different to see their actual history and actions. Politicians would just sound as vague and non-committal as possible, which they usually already do, and we wouldn't be able to hold them accountable if they were being dishonest about their actual platforms and beliefs. It would just cause more problems, if anything. Edit. While this blew up, please don't vote for Michael Bloomberg in the primaries. theguardian.com/comments-free/2020/February/12/Bloomberg avoiding scrutiny stop frisk.
I ran for municipal office a couple years ago, lost in a nail biter. While running, a major political figure in town, former mayor and retired federal cabinet minister, invited me for coffee. This guy is as straight up, honest, and principled as they come. He liked me, my campaign, and wanted to offer some advice. The main takeaway he emphasized in our chat was this: don't make promises or guarantees. Don't say you are going to do anything. Promise nothing but good representation. His reason? So many things are beyond the control of a single elected official. Tell people what you believe and how you will represent them. If you offer promises, you're setting them up for disappointment and yourself up for failure.
I think that sounds like a person who tries to behave ethically. I'm surprised he got as far as he did with an honest platform. Good for him. I agree with him. though it seems the way to win now is to promise everything for free and spread hate and misinformation. From both sides.
Greater than I think that sounds like a person who tries to behave ethically. That's a very optimistic outlook. A pessimist would just see it as covering their ass or even imply that they will do things they have no intention of touching.
Perhaps, but it's hard to win over voters without promising things. You have to really believe your integrity is that appealing. It's a hard sell.